Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Good morning. Rob Browne here, Sidelines, Tuesday college football and basketball edition. Got a lot to talk about today. We do know this. Bottom line, Auburn has hired a football coach, and that happened yesterday during the show. A lot of that information was coming out, but it has happened. Hugh Freeze is going to be the new man at Auburn, and I will say this, it's going to be a lot of fun. Oh, my goodness. All the people are coming out with their comments and saying what they're saying. And I'll just say this for Auburn people. The white smoke appeared from Sanford Hall when it was announced that Hugh Freeze is going to be the new football coach. As they say when they have a new pope, Havemus Popum. As they say when Auburn has a new coach, Havemus Coachum. It is official. Hugh Freeze today, 10 o'clock this morning, was made the new head football coach of the Auburn Tigers. Going to be a lot of fun. See what happens. Interesting, to say the least. This hire, I think a lot of people were like, wow, we didn't think it was going to happen. Thought it was going to be Lane Kiffin. Well, it ain't going to be Lane Kiffin. I think the Kiffin thing fell apart. Too much time. Hugh Freeze was always out there, and what Freeze is regarded as is a great recruiter, an excellent play caller, and a great motivator. Now, I know a lot of people at Ole Miss that know him well. I don't know Hugh Freeze. I'm looking forward to getting him on Sidelines to talk with him, hear what he's got to say, and that will happen. I'm really, and those of you that have questions, text them to me. Send them to us on the screen here. Ask questions. He's a full disclosure guy. So if you want to know, I will say this. There are going to be plenty of people that have questions. I don't know if the Auburn fan base is 50-50, 60-40, whatever. But I do know this. I don't think Auburn people would be happy with anybody that was brought in as head football coach. Nothing is going to make the Auburn fan base happy until they start winning again. 3 straight losing years. It's been rough. 20, 21, and 22. They haven't won more than 6 games in any of those years. It's kind of hard to believe, but somebody's got to come in there and right the ship, and that's going to be the big question mark. We're going to be with you the next 2 hours. Got a great show lined up. Going to be joined in the first segment by Doug Dean down in Birmingham, talking AU Dose. Second segment, we'll be joined by David Schultz, Mobile, WNSP, 105, first FM sports radio station, all sports in America from down in Mobile. Schultz cast, the Sultan of the Sunbelt. Top of hour number 2. Head over to Atlanta. Tommy Kane, ACC report, Wolfpack man. It's going to be a lot of fun. What's going on over there? Starting to transition into basketball. What's going on with North Carolina? The new number 1. For the first time since 1983, the Houston Cougars. Interesting. Segment number 4, Jordan Hill checks in, 24/7 Sports from Athens, checking on the Georgia Bulldogs. They get ready for Saturday's contest with LSU in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Stadium for the SEC Championship. All right. Follow us on Twitter. We appreciate that. A lot of people. I'm starting to get more and more active with Twitter. I see it. Hey, we talk about sports. That's what we do. That's who we are. Follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live. All right. A lot of great information out there. We're a sports radio show and podcast. Talk about sports. That's what we do. That's who we are. Miss us live. Go to 680thefan.com, the podcast park in Atlanta. Check our website out. Always www.sidelines.live. And Kicks 96.3, Alexander City, Lake Martin, down on beautiful Lake Martin, 750 miles of gorgeous shoreline. And we got a lot to cover. We're going to have, I guess I would say this, it's my opening comments. I have received, and anybody that's an Auburn fan, and it's their friends of other schools, everybody's got something to say about the Hugh Freeze hire. So, what is it a great hire? I think you got to take a chance. Is it outside the box hire? Well, I don't want to say that because Brian Harsin was an outside the box hire, and that didn't work out. But this is a guy that has experience recruiting in the South. He screwed up. He's taken ownership of his mistakes. And suddenly, right before he's hired, all these people come out of the woodwork. How many times have we seen that before, ladies and gentlemen? Doug Dean, welcome to Sidelines. AU Dose, Jimmy Hodge up in Lake Zurich, Illinois. Not Chicago, Lake Zurich. Doug, your thoughts on Auburn's new coach? Auburn's.
Good morning, Rob, Jimmy, the lovely Audrey, and football fans far and wide. I would be classless, Rob, if I didn't tip my hat to the Crimson Tide for doing what was completely unsurprising. They're just loaded with players. I'll say this, but before I get to your question about Auburn's new hire, Coach Freeze, Georgia better, this is just my opinion from the game I saw and what I think is about to happen with Alabama. If you give Nick Saban 4 weeks to prepare for anybody, Georgia better hope that Alabama doesn't backdoor into this playoff, because they would be number 4, wouldn't they? And Georgia faces them in the semifinals. Is that how that would go?
Yeah, you're talking about the possibility of Alabama backdooring into the college playoff.
Yeah. I just wanted, but mainly I wanted to tip my hat to the Crimson Tide. Bryce Young is awfully good. And,
I still think he's the best player in America.
Oh man, and you know, he's just never done anything but make Coach Saban and that fan base proud with his character, how he conducts himself. So, and I'd say the same thing about Will Anderson. I just don't have any venom in right now, because I couldn't be prouder. I'm not into moral victories, and we better not be, but I couldn't be prouder of what Cadillac did under the circumstances, which was a dumpster fire, to breathe some life back into it. And I was thrilled that the very first move, and I don't care if Freeze decided it or if it was mandated, was to make it clear that Cadillac Williams, if he wants to, remains on the staff, and I think they were immediately on the recruiting trail. We can get back to the talk of playoff, because the selection show will tell you a lot tonight what the pecking order is, and if Alabama doesn't jump Ohio State, then neither of those play, so they would need a lot of help to backdoor in. As for the coaching hire, you know, you like the term truth broker, Rob, and I at least I show up trying to live up to that standard. Hugh Freeze was at no point Doug Dean's 1A in this selection process. I will say he was a lot of important people who matter at Auburn. He was a lot of people's 1A, and I should probably be careful to dismiss Hugh Freeze's upside as a coach. But where I was coming from, as I wrote yesterday in the wake of the announcement, I felt like, and you saw it happening, that Auburn, with the new facility, with the On to Victory Collective, which is surging, and just the whole vibe, and getting Potato Head the heck out of Lee County, I felt like a rare opportunity existed for Auburn with new AD Cohen to make the kind of hire that was both looked like it had an elite upside. There are no guarantees in these coaching hires, as we know, but that a hire that would unify the Auburn fan base. And Rob and Jimmy, this hire did not unify the Auburn fan base. That doesn't mean Hugh Freeze can't, you know, work his evangelical magic. I choose that word carefully. I don't mean to have religious overtones, even though I probably did. What I mean is just charisma, just, you know, by how he conducts himself. Do the players embrace him, speak well of him? Does the coaching staff look incredible? If he makes all those kind of right moves, it'll take a while, but you know, certainly stranger things have happened than a guy with those character issues ultimately winning over a fan base.
Well, looking at this hire, and I know a lot of Ole Miss people, and you know, I've followed Freeze since he was at Briarcrest Christian School in Memphis. Hey man, everybody knows what he did at Ole Miss. Don't forget, he walked away and left $17 million on the table when he stepped down. He could have fought that. He didn't do it, just like Houston Nutt. Houston Nutt sued because he was getting blamed for all that stuff. And you know what? I was reminded right before the show by one of my friends over here, Rusty Howard, lifelong Razorback. Houston Nutt settled for nothing. He just wanted his name cleared. People have their narratives that they want to push. And I can assure you, Auburn people don't need Alabama's approval to hire a coach. Never have, never will. Yeah. And I think a lot of Auburn people worry, what is Alabama going to say? Who cares what they say? Alabama's the best program in college football. They don't need to be worrying about what Auburn does. Auburn doesn't need to be worrying about what Alabama does. What matters is this hire going to be a good fit? I will say, as far as Lane Kiffin goes, I know a lot of people at Ole Miss that are really connected to the athletic program and that university. I've got a lot of good friends that are. None of them knew Lane Kiffin. Does that sound familiar? Nobody knew Gus. Nobody knew Harsin. They said, Hugh Freeze, he's going to be the guy. You watch him at his opening press conference. He's going to be the guy that walks in the front door at the Thursday night coaches show, shakes hands with everybody, takes pictures. And you can say, well, he screwed up. He knows what he did. But he's going to be a guy that embraces everything Auburn. And the guys there tell me Lane Kiffin, and I kept saying this about, I don't know if look, he was the sexiest hire, the splashy, the big name, but he'll go to the beach for a week or two and not, and they don't know what he's doing. Auburn people want their coach to be in the football office at 4:30 in the morning with the lights burning, working, recruiting, embracing everything that is Auburn. It's been a while. Browne Harsin, I don't ever remember him saying how much he loved Auburn. So if that's important to Auburn people, then that's something Freeze is going to bring in. I'm looking forward to having him on this show. And all you people that have questions, submit them. Hey, you know what?
He'll come on the show for one.
Yeah. I'm excited about it. I mean, I talked to some people last night, said yes, we're going to get him on Sidelines. All you people out there, you want to say something to him, say it to his face.
Well, Rob, I don't want to be found guilty of being disingenuous and sound, revising history over the last 14 days. I had warmed up to the idea of Lane Kiffin coming to Auburn, but I did it with clear eyes. I'd like to think. Originally, y'all might remember I was a Jeff Grimes guy, but the landscape was different months ago. I felt like maybe the ceiling for Auburn was to go get a promising coordinator that you thought had, like Kirby Smart when he went to Georgia, that you feel like would quickly grow into the leadership requirements of head coach in the brutal SEC West. But as things progressed, it became clear to me that not only did our fan base insist on something of a splash hire, but we probably needed that at least short term to boost recruiting and not fall further behind. But I will say, so I wanted Kiffin. I knew going in that when you hire Lane Kiffin, you're hiring some drama, and you might be hiring a short tenure because he's always got a wandering eye for coaching career moves. I don't mean that term in any snarky way. But now that we missed on Lane, and the behind the scenes on that I tend to believe is that there's enough blame to go around. I think if Cohen were more of a master operator, he could have consummated this deal on Wednesday, day before Thanksgiving, if he sort of pushed the issue when Kiffin was ready to go, supposedly. But I also think that Kiffin, as things progressed, mismanaged himself in that moment, getting into a tussle with a no-name reporter, John Sokoloff in Starkville, that was not a good look, and then I'm told, demanding more from Auburn, possibly even an out, that if he wanted to leave for another big name school, you can guess who that might be, that he would have a little or no buyout to do so the first 3 years. So, if that's how, I wasn't in the room, I don't have surveillance on Cohen or Kiffin, but if that's how it went, then we were never going to hire Lane Kiffin, and so the only failure, if there is one, is not having a more reliable short list when it just came down to Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, and we're about to go to a break, and I want to get back in here after the break. And I know Jimmy's got some questions on it. I want to hear what he has to say, but I'll offer this up. The way Jimmy Sexton, the agent for Lane Kiffin, that's what he does. Everybody got a raise out of this one, folks. Everybody got a raise. It looks like Auburn's offering a 6-year deal, not a 10-year deal. That's better than 10, because if it ain't working out early on, if a dog will bite, he'll do it when he's a pup. You'll know. So that's helpful. But again, man, I used to be such a harsh critic of Hugh Freeze living in Memphis and watching what happened at Ole Miss and all. And I started investigating and asking people that actually know him. Okay. Don't let the facts ever get in the way of a narrative that you're wanting to push. You and the boys at the club, having a few cocktails. Well, this is, come on. Always ask the source, and that's what we're going to try to do. Again, I'm not a shill or covering for anybody. I'm tougher on Auburn than I am of any other school, because that's my school. But I'm going to be fair on the air, and I think you just had a great take, Doug. I love what you just said. I think there's plenty of blame to go around on both sides. And so, you think about a guy that loves recruiting, that is going to get out. Okay. People say, well, that's a character issue. No recruits will talk to him. Really? Let's start looking into the past of coaches out there. You want to start doing that? You think, what if social media would have been around 30, 40, 50 years ago with the coaches we had?
Yeah.
You put them up on a pedestal. Yeah, we'll see about that. We'll talk about it right after this quick break.
Go to break on powder milk biscuits here.
Hey everyone, my name is David Wisdom.
And I'm Shelby McNeil, and we're attorneys with Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short, your local Auburn law firm. Established in 1959 right in the heart of Auburn, Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short has grown in response to our clients' legal needs. We're a full-service law firm focusing on the legal issues our clients face.
We take pride in providing our clients with exceptional legal services, ongoing communication, and skilled representation. If you have any questions about our services, please give us a call or visit our website today.
They're the law in Auburn since 1959. Haygood, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson, and Short. At some point in our lives, folks, we're all going to need an attorney. They've got 9 of the best in the Southeast. Check them out. Give them a call. Get started with great counsel. Phil Thompson, I've known for 40 years. I'll vouch for him. I love him. Jimmy, now looking at this thing, Hugh Freeze, okay? Everybody out there has got an opinion on Hugh Freeze. What matters is, what are recruits going to say? What are the current Auburn players going to say? And, in talking with people behind the scenes that I know are honest, if you ask them, does the dress make me look fat? They're going to tell you. Even if it means sleeping out in the back house for a while. They love it. So, Jimmy, from high above in Lake Zurich, Illinois, your thoughts?
Well, as far as I was concerned, Freeze was the only choice. He checked off all the boxes. That if you're looking for a head football coach at Auburn, he fills them. I mean, he's had success everywhere he's been, but he's been successful in the SEC. He won at Ole Miss. He's beaten Saban a couple of times. He has the type of personality that's going to fit in well with Auburn when you go to the social functions throughout the state, in which you interact with alumni. All those things that a lot of people don't think are important, but it really is, because you have to have the decision makers, the influence brokers at any school that make things happen, that have to be in your corner. And his personality is such that it's going to be easy for him to fit in at Auburn. I personally thought that Kiffin would have been a disaster, because he hates doing all that stuff.
Yep.
And at a place like Auburn where, you know, they stress the family atmosphere. It's just critical that everybody that needs to be happy with you is happy with you. And although, just like you said, once this choice was announced, not everybody's going to be happy with it. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, but they did seem to have I guess, a general consensus among the influential people at Auburn, along with a Cohen. And in my mind, they came up with the right guy because he is going to win there. He is going to have relationships with the players that are going to bring about an atmosphere in which they're going to play hard for him. And so that other stuff, yeah, a lot of people are concerned about some of it. But again, at the end of the day, with the Auburn fan base in general, they want to win, and this guy's going to win.
Yeah, Jimmy, great take on that. Yeah,
go Doug. Excellent take. And one of the things that's always been impressive about Jimmy Hodge is he's undyingly fair. He's fair even to rival fan bases, and that's the mark of an analyst that's worth listening to. So thank you for that, Jimmy. You know, talking
absolutely
actual ball on this Coach Freeze hire, I will be, and I always was, whether it was Kiffin or Freeze, or I was fascinated with Dan Lanning, but you know, it was kind of comical and fits the job of just Auburn being Auburn doctrine a little bit, is our entire short list started losing games inexplicably as the backloaded season progressed. But I liked Dan Lanning. I really wasn't a Fickle or Matt Rule guy, because I think, to Jimmy's point, it's going to be very helpful to kind of have a little Southern accent and know your way around the Deep South. But I'll be watching with interest now the coordinators Freeze hires, and the name Barry Odom defensively. They're well acquainted. Is one to keep an eye on. You're going to hear people talk about Will Muschamp coming back to Auburn. I don't necessarily see it. Because, you know, to me, the only thing Muschamp is missing at Georgia possibly is feeling like he's got a little more control over the defense they run, but that's his alma mater. So as we watch this staff filled out, will it have elite coordinators surrounded by serial killer, if you will, recruiters? That's probably what Auburn needs more than anything at the moment, that are well acquainted and know the high school coaches in our hotbed recruiting areas. Auburn just landed a recruit from Carver in Columbus, I believe, Rob, and it's been I think way back, almost a decade since Gabe Wright maybe that was the last player Auburn landed from there, and we don't even have a head coach but a day. So the clock is running fast, and Freeze has got to try to use NIL and salvage something out of this early signing period and hit the portal hard.
Yeah, you remember.
Yeah, well, Doug, I think that. No, go ahead.
Go ahead,
Rob.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Well, no, Doug. I was just about to say that at this point in time, with that early signing day, it's a week away. I mean, there's not much you can do, but what you can do in this week leading up to it, though, is get yourself out in front of as many influential high school coaches in Alabama and throughout Georgia, and just send the message that, you know, if you have kids that can play at our level, we're going to be aware of them, and we're going to be following their progress, and just establish that communication link right away, because again, he doesn't even know what his staff is right now. So it's really hard to go out there with a unified message if you don't know who's going to be on your staff. But I can just about guarantee you, unless he gets elevated to the head job at Liberty, Freeze will be bringing former Ole Miss quarterback and his current offensive coordinator at Liberty, Ken Austin, with him. And he's a great coach. And he did wonders with Malik Willis. And that offense has been really good with Gus and Austin running it. So they're going to be in good shape there. I can just about guarantee that. Obviously, Cadillac's going to be a big part of the program. And also I could see maybe something to the tune of associate head coach, and then, maybe helping at a different position, but they'll find things for him to do that are going to be very beneficial in making Auburn successful.
Yeah, and the relationship that Ken Austin has, Ken Austin has some relationships with a lot of people in the South.
Yeah, sorry I walked on you, Rob. The thing I wanted to footnote too that's to me fascinating, and I'm stealing Jason Caldwell's commentary yesterday, which was excellent, but to my great surprise, and it was one game, but Robbie Ashford, you don't need to write him off quite yet. I mean, if you get a guy, Ken Austin and Freeze, who have a history, their quarterbacks have always performed well. Sure, you're going to probably go in the portal and see if you can get a plug-and-play QB, and you've got Holden Gariner sitting there that may be, phenomenal. But goodness gracious, the skill set, if Ashford can learn the subtleties and the mechanics of throwing the ball and going through progressions, we know what he can do athletically. He caused Alabama some serious problems Saturday, so that's exciting.
Yeah. So you've got 3 weeks, just checking on that date, early signing date is December 21st. So you've got 3 weeks from tomorrow before signing day. But you remember back when Terry Bowden was named Auburn's coach, he came down from Birmingham. He was coach at Samford. He went out right after the press conference and got on a plane and was out recruiting. He ended up getting 3 of the top 10 players in Alabama that year. Marcellus Mostella, great linebacker out of Gadsden. Willie Anderson out of Viger High School down in Pritchard. And he also got Jesse McCullough, tight end out of Theodore, Alabama. It can be done. And I think it's going to be critical.
Pitch is, Rob? Yeah, I'll tell you what your pitch is. And we're not talking, Jimmy's right. It's too close. The guys they're just deciding what hat to wear when they make their announcement. But there may be 7 or 8 stud recruits that really liked a lot about Auburn, but they struggled with Brian Harsin. And why wouldn't you if you watched what he was like? But if you can convince those guys, look, the world won't come to an end if you wait until February to announce where you're going. So if you can get guys to continue their shopping, which won't be easy, but, if it's the right 7 or 8 or however many guys that can round out the group of high schoolers, then it makes your job just dramatically easier raiding the portal.
Yeah, it really does. And you've got to think Gus was kind of, winding it up. The recruiting, his average class in his 8 years at Auburn was number 8 in the country. It was just the development. He could get players. Auburn's going to sell itself. Bring him in. David Schultz is on with us now, Doug. So hang on down at WNSP in Mobile. Schultz cast the Sultan of the Sunbelt, the Gulf Coast, Q's Nation for life. He loves that one. But I got to say, Doug.
Schultz, you're not from around here, are you, boy?
I am not. No. Nope.
He knows. Hey, Schultz is unbelievable. I met him at SEC Media Days, and he is everywhere with covering high school and college sports and pros.
But I intentionally live near I-10 compared to I-90. I don't need the snow and or the cold anymore.
I hear you. Guys, I'm going to leave it with you. Y'all have a great show.
Well, Doug, one more thing. I got to tell you this.
Yeah.
Great commentary. I love your take because everything you say is measured. I also loved what Jimmy had to say because, we don't hold anybody back on this show. I mean, I'm an Auburn guy. Jimmy's an Alabama guy, but Jimmy's always fair, and he does not say anything like you without thinking it through. That's the difference. But I thought your commentary was great, and you're definitely going to be on here when Hugh Freeze is on with us here soon, hopefully. because
I'd love it.
And the people that have questions, you know what? Ask him. I don't know Hugh Freeze. I know people that know him really well, 20 plus years. And I talked to him last night. I talked to some coaches from some schools last night. They're going, if you know Ken Austin, that guy is a football junkie. I remember Ken Austin, Doug, when he played for Brentwood Academy, had a tight end named Jimmy Hockaday. And they came to Memphis and beat MUS. Had one of the best teams ever, 35-7. You're talking some football minds are about to be making their way to the Plains, so it's going to be fun. But, Doug, be ready. As soon as Hugh Freeze can be on here, just keep the engine revved up, okay?
Absolutely. Y'all have a great show.
You do too. Thanks. Have a great day. Doug Dean, AU Dothan, Birmingham. Dave Schultz, Schultzy cast. Dave, I tell you this all the time. I comment on Twitter. You're out there everywhere covering so much high school football in Alabama, college football, pro football. It is playoff week in Alabama at Jordan-Hare Stadium. December 1st, which will be Thursday, coaches can start making contacts. Let's talk about the Alabama high school football playoff scene because there are 22 4-stars in state this year, 7 5-stars, but there's always guys in the playoffs on the biggest of stages that emerge. Guys like Antonio Langham from small towns like Town Creek, Alabama, become legends.
Well, I know the Saraland guys, 6A, they'll be playing Mountain Brook, and they're all sophomores and or freshmen. Like the D-line is sophomores. The big guys on offense, KJ Lacey is the quarterback. Ryan Hollywood Williams is the sophomore. He's already verbally committed to Alabama. And then you got Sante McWilliams, who's the running back, who had a big ball game, much better ball game, second go around against Theodore than the first one. So that is the 7 o'clock ball game on Friday night. None of these ball games could be between my show. It would have been nice to have, another day off. But no, I can't get a championship game between 3 and 6. It's either at 11, 1, or 7. I need to change that. Jimmy, people. Move that ball game from 3 to 6. Let's go.
Let me see what I can do.
Please do.
Jimmy, wave the wand, Jimmy, to the Alabama High School Athletic Association. Doug, Dave, I got to ask you this now. The high school football scene in Alabama, you go all the way to 7A, the Mountain Brook game in the playoffs, and you talk about Saraland is mostly a lot of sophomores. Saraland is in Baldwin County, correct?
I think it's Mobile County. They're just
north.
No. They're just north on 65.
Yeah, wrong side. Yeah, they are in Mobile County because I go through there.
Yeah. So, I get that confused too.
Yeah, because we come down 45 down the land, the highway, the land that time forgot, and then cross over there in Citronelle and come on into Orange Beach. But I'm gonna ask you, is the best high school football, in your opinion, from what you see, down on the coast in Mobile and Baldwin County, or Jefferson County and Shelby County in Birmingham?
Well, I'm not familiar with it up there. Obviously, the Thompsons and the Hoovers get a lot of the pub. The thing down here is that the 7A schools don't do nearly as well as the 6A schools. The Fair Hopes always seem to come up short, whereas Spanish Fort is really good in 6A. Saraland is good in 6A. That always seems to be a much bigger deal. The big upset this year was UMS Wright, is Terry Curtis, who, by the way, I don't know if anybody noticed, was highlighted on CBS during the Iron Bowl. We had a good minute of Terry Curtis publicity, which is a school just down the street from where I live and the station. So that was nice to see, but they did get upset. And then we got this kid, Josh Flowers from Baker. I think he's a junior, and they did not have a great season. And so we'll see where he goes. It'll be interesting to see if Auburn tries to get into that race now with the new head coach. So it's a lot of fun watching it. And then you get the Christian Burnett's at Faith Academy and Ronnie Royal down at Gulf Shores with my guy, Mark Hudspeth. So there's plenty of talent to go around. In fact, next year, it'll be interesting to see. You're going to have all these 3 guys on Saraland competing for Mr. Alabama. You're going to have Sterling Dixon at Mobile Christian. He's highly touted. And then Josh Flowers as well as Baker. So there's plenty of talent to go around down here. Already looking forward to next year.
Well, we're about to go to a break, and I want to get back because a lot of
Jimmy,
questions.
can I tell you that? Let me say one thing. Jimmy, if I could tell you 10 years ago that I'd be able to name a half a dozen high school football players in the state of Alabama, I would have said no way. There's no way that I was selling memberships in Key Largo. And now I'm rattling off high school football players in Alabama.
Well, I'm telling you, in the Southeast, I mean, now with the population growth, I mean, you're talking Georgia, South Carolina. You'd be stunned at the number of elite players in South
Hold
Carolina.
those thoughts.
Hold
those thoughts. We're going to be right back with more on Sidelines.
Hey, y'all. It's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection. And they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Rob Browne back with Dave Schultz, Jimmy Hodge, talking Alabama high school football. The Sultan of the Sunbelt. I got to ask you another one before we get back into this. Troy, 10-2. South Alabama wins 10 wins.
Right.
Coastal Carolina. What is it about the Sunbelt that they don't get? They really don't get near the national publicity as a conference. But my God, look where they're located. They get everything the SEC misses on.
Well, they certainly got a lot of publicity the second week of this, or the second or third week of the season. Yeah. All right, they had the 3 wins. You know, App State had a huge win. Marshall beats Notre Dame in South Bend. Yeah. Georgia Southern had a big win, so they got plenty of publicity right before I started Lockdown Sunbelt. So I take responsibility for that. Yeah. I handle that. So they do get plenty of publicity. And when Coastal Carolina was undefeated a couple years ago, Jamie Chadwell was the National Coach of the Year. It's really tough to, compete with Auburn and Alabama. And unfortunately, South did not have a big crowd Saturday morning on the day of the Iron Bowl. Weather probably had more to do with that than anything else. But it's just tough to compete with the Auburns and Alabamas on a regular basis. They do a pretty good job drawing on weekends in basketball. You get 4,000 to 5,000 in there. During the week, it's probably 2,500 to 3,000. And so it's just tough. But we'll see. I saw Kane Womack's name on USF potential list. I'm not sure if that's a job that he would take. Some people thought that maybe he would be interested in Cincinnati, coaching the Midwest in Indiana. So I'm not sure if that's the right fit. That's probably a half a step up. But I think Kane Womack, a couple more years down here, at least one more year, somewhere along the way, he's going to make the jump like a Billy Napier did from the Sunbelt to the SEC. So, he would have been, I think, in the mix should Lane Kiffin have gotten the Auburn job. I think Kane Womack would have been on the list to go to Ole Miss. And watch out if the rumors are true about Mike Leach. I hope he's healthy. I hope he doesn't retire. Mm-hmm. We all need Mike Leach in our lives. And so I hope he's okay. But if he does step down due to health situation, I would presume Kane Womack, and I say that because Kane Womack's a Mississippi guy. So he went to Southern Miss. His dad coached at Southern Miss, and so he's Mississippi through and through.
I think his dad was on Hugh Freeze's staff at one time. So he's got, I know people in Mobile that know Kane Womack, and they are really high on this guy.
Next year, keep an eye on it next year. So Willie Fritz apparently is taking the Georgia Tech job. And so we'll see what happens with Tulane. But they have Tulane and Oklahoma State on their schedule next year. And they got the quarterback is coming back. The running back is coming back. He's going to fill some more holes on the defensive line. And so watch out for South Alabama next year making a little bit of pop. They'll probably get some preseason pub. And because we'll see who Troy is losing this year. I mean, Carlton Marshall can only go to college for 10 years, right? He can't stay there much longer than that. So he's probably leaving. And so we'll see. South Alabama is going to get a little preseason pub next year, especially if they can beat a Tulane on the road in New Orleans and see if they can compete with Oklahoma State next season.
Yeah, and I just think it's interesting. And they got publicity early in the season. I'm talking about here we are, John Summerall, first year. John Hartwell was reminding me of that a couple of nights ago. Texted me 10-2 in his first year at Troy. And if you haven't been to Troy and seen those facilities, what I'm saying about you, they're really good, Dave. And you give these schools a lot of credit, as you do Auburn and Alabama and the Q's Nation. But Jimmy, jump in here with David Schultz, WNSP Mobile, Schultz Cast, the Sultan of the Sunbelt, connoisseur of all great Gulf seafood.
Well, I think one reason that the Sun Belt doesn't get the publicity it deserves is the fact that so many teams in the league are good. I mean, it's hard to kind of separate yourself from everybody else like you can in certain conferences. I mean, even in the SEC, like Alabama and Georgia. Man, in the Sun Belt, and you've seen it up close and personal, Dave, if you're not ready to play every week, you're going to come out on the short end. And these coaching staffs have done a tremendous job of, I guess, having whatever staff is available during the season to watch games from all over the country to score those transfer portal opportunities for guys that, you know, hey, we were really interested in them in high school. But, you know, they decided to give the Power Five a try. They're not getting the playing time, but according to their evaluations, they can really help us. And these coaching staffs in the Sun Belt have done a tremendous job with portal players over the last 4 or 5 years. And, you know, so I think that really makes it hard because you don't have really any easy wins in the Sun Belt. As a matter of fact, I don't know about you, Dave, but I would put the Sun Belt right up there with the AAC as the best group of 5 conference right now. Even though they don't have the publicity because they don't have those larger markets like the AAC schools have.
Yeah, some markets like Lafayette's a little bit different. Even here in Mobile. So Lafayette, they have like 4, they did when I was there. They had like 4 TV stations and 2 newspapers and 2 sports talk stations. There's not a lot of that around, right? Like Mobile basically has 2 TV stations with sports departments, and one person is all alone. She's new and she's handling everything. So how do you deal with that? And there's only 1 newspaper, and it's only online now, AL.com. So there's not a lot of whole, media publicity here. But I will say this, and Jimmy, I don't know where this, and Rob, maybe you know. So the Sunbelt Championship is Troy versus Coastal Carolina. Yeah. Because JMU, James Madison, moved up from FCS to FBS. Apparently, some super genius made a rule to prevent them from being in a bowl game and or the conference championship game. All right. Now, Grayson McCall has been out for 3 to 6 weeks. And this would be week number 4 if he comes back. So it is what it is. I'm not even sure Coastal would, beat Troy if Grayson was healthy. But JMU going up at Troy would be a spectacular game. You have this high-powered offense with Todd Centeo, who probably is going to be the offensive player of the year. They were bad when he wasn't there, and now they just crushed Coastal. Going up against this great defense in Troy, it'd be a spectacular game. I don't know why that rule is in place. It's foolish. If I was at a lower level and I'm better than you, I should absolutely be able to represent you. So JMU is kind of getting screwed. But, Kurt Signetti, for those who don't know, was actually on the Alabama staff. And he was the ones who came down here to get the Julio Joneses of the world in that first-grade class at Alabama for Nick Saban. And the thing is, like my guy Babers, he's a little bit older. So he's like 61. So he's not a spring chicken. So he may just be sticking around JMU and, make a nice high 6-figure salary and coach there for the next decade and just try to grow JMU.
Well, I think we've seen, guys, that some coaches are just great career coordinators. And if you can make $1.5 million, $2 million a year, and then you become a head coach making $6 to $10 million, it depends on where you are. A lot of those guys don't like the pressure and having to manage 9 other assistant coaches or 10, whatever, and all the boosters and the alumni. Now, in the case of a place like Auburn, boosters don't really get involved, so that's an easy job. So it just depends. I mean, Auburn's boosters are very laid back and don't get involved.
Oh, all right, okay. I was making sure I heard that correctly.
Making sure you were awake, Dave.
Look, a little tongue in cheek there. I don't know how much people are making that kind of money in the Sunbelt. I was told by a Sunbelt coach, if it was all about money, he would have taken the DC coaching job at an SEC school. So he wanted to be a head coach looking further down the road. Now, Billy Napier was making a healthy, making a lot of money. It was reported up to like $2 million his last year. And the reason he stuck around was, he grew up as probably thinking he was going to be a high school football coach. His dad was a high school football coach forever. So he's making more money than he ever thought that he was. You're making a couple $1 million in Lafayette, Louisiana. You're living, you're living well, right? And so when he's going to get to the next thing, he's not worried that I got to go, chase the first job out there. And so I just saw that Jake Spavital, from Texas State, was making $800,000. He got let go. That's a ton of money, right, to be living in San Marcos. So he's got one more year left on his contract. He got let go. He's still going to get $400,000. So, I mean, I know that's Rob and Jimmy, but I know those kind of guys talk to Rob about their serious investments and everything like that, but I can't imagine what it's like to make that kind of money.
And you know what? A lot of people, most every wealthy client I've had in 31 plus years tells you the same thing. When we didn't have all this money and we had 3 or 4 kids running around the house, life was so much simpler. Now we go to Thanksgiving or Christmas or a family reunion, everybody wants to talk to us, even the people that don't like us. That's what happens.
Yeah, I'll deal with that. I'll deal with that headache. Give me
there
that
you
headache.
go.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Hey.
All right, I'll deal with a little bit of that headache.
I got a question for you. Got a text from one of our listeners, Dr. Waller May, Tuscaloosa. He said Carlton Martial is the best linebacker in terms of stats all time. Do you think that Jim Nagy and the Senior Bowl will invite him down there this year? It may have already happened, but can you confirm or deny that he'll be there?
I don't know if he's been invited. They haven't put it out there. A lot of these coaches, like, you haven't seen Alabama post their team yet. I would presume that's coming this week since they don't have a game to play. So we'll see. Different coaches handle it different ways. South Alabama announced theirs last week. And so, no, I haven't seen Carlton Martial. So it should be noted that Jim Nagy basically is going off of what NFL guys are telling him. So Carlton Martial is a great story. He is 5'9", maybe. Now, he's played 6 years, so he is the all-time leading tackler in the NCAA. That is a great, great mark.
Yeah.
Do I think that he could make it in the NFL as, a backup and a special teamer? Sure. I mean, Sam Mills was a Hall of Famer. He's not much bigger. So I would love to see it. Jim Nagy's not going to hand out a invite just because he's a local kid. They used to do that. They used to hand out, how many Alabama guys can we get down here? How many Auburn guys can we get down here? And so they don't do that anymore. So if you're invited to the Senior Bowl, you're a legitimate draft prospect. Some better than others. So I'm hoping Carlton Martial is there. It would be great for him. It'd be great for the Senior Bowl. But I'm not sure he is high on people's draft boards, because you can find a lot of people with a lot more talent, but with a lot less heart than Carlton Martial.
Yeah, I'll tell you
they don't get up after he makes a tackle and saying, how tall are you?
Yeah, well, the toughest linebacker I've ever seen in high school football ever in my life was a guy at Christian Brothers High School when I was there named Tom Marable, 5'7", 157 pounds, and he hit you. It was like being hit by a truck going 50 miles an hour, and he was a state wrestling champion. He had a son who was a national champion wrestler at Missouri. Tom wrestled at LSU, but sometimes guys that are not that tall, they're just so compact. I mean, Tom was built like a fire hydrant. I mean, there was no, I mean, I was at a party one time, my dad at our house, and we're talking to Tom and my friend Tom, John Dorian, and Tom goes, "Excuse me, Mr. Browne," put his head through the door, came back and goes, "How about another beer?" I mean, that guy was the toughest football player I've ever seen. 5'7", 157. So I'm a big Carlton Marshall fan. Sam
I am
Mills.
too.
You know, I'm so glad that you put that story out there for people, because I'm getting a lot of stuff on my phone. And one guy said, my kid is only 5'10", and he plays linebacker, and he always feels like he's too short, but he's tough as nails. That's all it takes, doesn't it, Jimmy? You know, you played college football and probably could have played pro football.
Well, I just think at any level, if you've got guys that just have the talent and they have the determination and you have the right circumstances where just maybe your position is a little thin and you get an opportunity there, you can really go a long way. And you know, what was Mike Singletary, like 5'10" maybe? One of the greatest linebackers of all time, you know, and certain guys just have an ability to read the keys of the offensive lineman, you know, just the way they line up and look for kind of giveaway signs of whether it's a run or a pass, maybe just if the lineman's leaning backwards a little bit and you can tell, or he's kind of leaning forward as if it's going to be a running play to get a quick surge and things like that. So there's so many things in this game that you can take advantage of to make you a better player that don't require sheer physical advantages. You know, if you can just kind of get, it is like why Dennis Rodman was such a great rebounder. He had this knack of knowing how the ball was going to carry off the rim or carry him off the rim and get an idea where it was going and kind of cheat that way. And it's very similar in football. You know, when you just look for certain things the opponent's doing that might give you an idea of where the play's going. So, I mean, it doesn't matter what sport it is. I mean, those are exceptions because in football, if you don't have tremendous speed, that, you know, which can make up for a lack of size, then, you know, you're going to have a struggle. But you got to have, you know, that characteristic anyway, just a field smarts and just anticipation ability. And then you got to have that toughness and ability to make tackles.
Well, John Summerall is the one who there weren't a whole lot of D1 offers for Carlton Marshall, as you can imagine. He's 5'9", maybe, right? And so John Summerall, he was still at Troy. He offered him a preferred walk-on. And, you know, half a dozen years later, he's still there. And you know, obviously earned the scholarship and is leaving college as the all-time NCAA leading tackler. It's a great story. I think, Rob, you should write the movie. That's got Disney movie written all over it.
You know who was number 2 in the last 2 or 3 years? Bumper Poole, Arkansas linebacker.
He led, right. Bumper. The only person that had a Bumper Poole at Arkansas is Carlton Marshall.
Yeah, and Bumper Poole out of Lucas, Texas. Dave, do you remember Joe Dean, former you know, SEC announcer? You don't remember him doing the SEC basketball games? No, Jimmy, you remember his signature slogan?
Oh,
Joe Dean.
String music.
Yeah, he go
with John Ferguson, the former LSU play-by-play,
the voice of the Tigers.
They did that, and they did the
somebody
SEC
would
TV game of the week.
Yeah, and they would be doing a game, and they'd be like at Kentucky, say, you know, Tennessee at Kentucky. Somebody would light it up from outside, and he'd go, little string music from downtown Lexington, KY. Man, that guy was incredible. And he later became the AD at LSU. And we're about to go to a break. Come back a few more minutes with you, Dave. I want to get your thoughts as we start going now on this college basketball season up to this point. North Carolina, they're out for the first time since Guy Lewis was hanging on to that red and white checkered towel as the coach of Houston with Phi Slamma Jamma. Houston's the number 1 team, first time since 1983. Crazy world of college basketball. Coach K, Roy Williams, Jay Wright at Villanova, they're out. We're going to talk about it right after this.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back with David Schultz and Jimmy Hodge. And David, let's talk a little string music from downtown Mobile, Alabama.
South Alabama is 6-0 against the spread. How about that?
That's what matters, isn't it?
Yeah, it does.
First things first.
They have an odd schedule. Jimmy, I've never heard of this. They're going to play 4 home games before conference play starts. They went to brutal. And one of them was Alabama at home. Another one, and they play in like Mobile and Spring Hill at home. I think they're at Jacksonville State. Maybe Jacksonville State's here, but they're playing at UAB. They're playing at Alabama A&M. They played at Oklahoma in a ball game they could have won. They played at New Mexico out in the pit. It's been a crazy schedule. They went to the East Coast to play in some sort of tournament, and they're not back again until like right before Christmas. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So
well,
I'll be road tested. I'll tell you that.
I'd be remiss, Dave, if I didn't ask you the $64,000 question. How much longer is Boeheim going to go? You can't be losing to Bryant. You just can't.
No, I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you. No, it's been. I didn't even watch the game. So no, I'm with you 100%. Plus, they had a big win earlier in the week, and they competed well with St. John's. They had a chance to win that ball game before it went to overtime. You can't be losing to Bryant. You're absolutely right. I'm not sure what has happened in terms of the talent. The kid, Joe Girard, was the all-time New York State, leading scorer, and he's good. He just hasn't gotten any better. Like, one night he's got 31 against St. John's, and I'm not sure he scored the next night, and he can't be doing that. So he just has not been as consistent as you would like him to be in terms of getting better. People have caught on to the zone because the game changed in the last 10 years. All of a sudden, people can shoot. And so that's been a problem. And he hasn't adapted. He's trying to play man-to-man this year, and I don't think it's gone very well. They do have a couple of players. They get Illinois tonight. So we'll see how that goes. Illinois is pretty good. But you're absolutely right. I think this year is the last year. I think he's done this year. But he's one of those guys, he plays golf in the summer and watches basketball. And when the bad weather is bad, he's inside with basketball. So he's a true blue Central New Yorker. So I appreciate everything he's done. I don't know who the next guy is going to be because good luck following that. But
Dave, look, about out of time. Tell us something before we go. A lot of people, including me, we go down to Orange Beach, Destin, going through Mobile down there. Give me a couple.
You don't go through Mobile. You bypass Mobile. You never come this way.
I do.
I always I would take you to lunch at Dreamland Barbecue, but you're like, no time. We'll eat down there.
I have not been down there since I met you, but I will be back down there in the next few months. But I was going to say this. I love it because we take that bypass and end up out there at Winsel's, going across I-10 out to Baldwin County. But I got to ask you, what are a couple of off the beaten path seafood places? I love DAWGS Seafood there by the Publix in Orange Beach because that's where the locals like to eat. But give me some new places in Mobile that you really
I don't know if
like.
it's new. If it's new, I don't know if it's new, but Felix's Fish Camp. Felix's Fish Camp is the place that I've enjoyed taking my parents there and my friends there. My brother, we ate there. So that's pretty neat. That's right on the water. Felix's Fish Camp is right in between. It's on it's on the Bayway.
Yeah.
I think.
Right there by
between
the
Mobile, right past the battleship. Yeah. So that's the one. Yeah. That's the one I appreciate. 9 weeks until the Senior Bowl, Rob Browne. Let's see you step up. 9 weeks until Senior Bowl week. Let's go.
We're coming down this year, and I am so fired up. The Senior Bowl, I'm coming this year. That is an incredible event. Tell people how they can follow you, keep up with you on your Twitter handle.
This is recorded. He said he's coming. All right. I have my doubts.
Last year, I was coming last year, and then my mom got the virus, and I had to go get her out. Trust me, I never heard that. I was blamed by my sisters for her getting it, so I did not get to go. I would much rather have gone to the Senior Bowl than face the wrath of Susan and Elizabeth. Trust me.
Fair enough. Schultz Cast. On Twitter, we do the show 3 to 6 p.m. On WNSP Sports Radio 105.5 WNSP. And then you could, follow me and, not follow me yet. We got to get the Twitter feed going. But Locked On Sunbelt, please rate, review, subscribe, and download and all of that. I think we're getting some coaches this week from football, the guys who have a little bit extra time. I think I got to put in the biggest ball game of the weekend was that App State Georgia Southern ball game. Before double overtime, Jimmy, 7 lead changes and 3 ties, and that's before double overtime. So that ball game was great. I need to try and get on Clay Helton because he was so jacked up and so pumped up right after that. I don't even know if he heard the question from the sideline reporter after the game, and he's like, "Isn't college football the best thing ever?" Yeah,
yeah. And think about Georgia Southern going into Lincoln and putting it on Nebraska. In Helton's first year, he is looks like he's found a place that maybe he may stay a while because again, his brother, was at a Western Kentucky, had some success there, and he's moved around a little bit. So I was really surprised to see Helton go from USC to Georgia Southern, but it looks like it's working out.
Yeah. I mean, Dave, I'll tell you what, those guys in the Sunbelt, just judging by all the Twitter stuff you put out there, videos, I think they are having so much fun. They're not making the money they did maybe in a Power 5 program, a guy like Clay Helton, but I bet he's having more fun than he's had in decades. That's just a personal observation.
So. Yeah, I think that's a special place. We'll see. Again, that could be one of those, he's done the big time thing. You go 6-6 at USC, you're losing your job. Yeah. Right? You go 6-6 at Georgia Southern and go to a bowl game and you beat your rival in App State, you're sticking around.
Yeah, I did. Mm-hmm. Dave, man, thank you so much for your time. As always, love it. Look forward to reading and your posts all week long. See you next week.
Thank you, guys.
Great stuff. You bet. You're welcome always. That is Dave Schultz, WNSP Mobile FM 105, the first all sports FM station in these here United States of America. When I think of the ACC, I think of Jim Thacker. I think of Jim Valvano. I think of Carolina, the Wolfpack, Duke. I think of all the stuff going on, and I think of Tommy Kane, ACC road trip, and he's going to tell us how Georgia Tech, with the hiring of a new coach, is going to conquer the free world and cure everything right down to bad vision and palsy.
Ready? Good morning, fellas. That's quite the intro.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Good. A lot of stuff going on in college sports these days. It's an awesome time of the year for sure. It's kind of bittersweet because the end of the regular season, college football is over, and you got the bowl games to look forward to and all that stuff. But it's like, oh man, like you just don't ever want it to stop, Yeah. They should play college football year round, and it would be a lot better. Everybody would be a lot better mood all year round, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, we watched that NC State North Carolina game Friday. I was up there day 2 of the Food Coma Express up in Clarksville, Tennessee. Just here, have another helping. If you show signs of waking up, they feed you more. Wow. What a game over in Chapel Hill. And it's just the ending. Man, Dave Doran was emotional, as he should be. I want a guy that's passionate. Talk about what that means to you. Oh,
hey, I love it. I love it. That's our arch rival. It's bittersweet. I mean, it's like it's that game on the calendar every year. It's coming up, and no matter what the season, how it's going, or whatever, you could lose every game going up into that game. But if you beat Carolina, it's like Auburn, Alabama, right? I mean, a coach can make his career by beating Alabama if you're Auburn coach, or vice versa. That doesn't make any difference. Like at the end of the day, we're going to look back and go, oh, Dave Dorn won so many games and he beat Chapel Hill 8 out of the 9 years he was there, or 10 years. That's what matters when it comes to NC State, Chapel Hill, North Carolina for football. So just a heck of a win. I mean, on the road playing, against the arch rival, Drake May. I mean, there's just a lot of good stories there. May was just a fantastic quarterback, having a great year. He talked a little smack earlier in the year about the Wolfpack and saying if you grew up in North Carolina, then you know that if you know that everybody there is a Chapel Hill fan, and if you're not, and he said something along the lines of like, if you can't get into Chapel Hill, then you go to NC State kind of thing. Like he said that earlier in the year, and then he realized really quickly he shouldn't have said that when you're going up against one of the best defenses in the country. Yeah, but the Wolfpack showed up big time on defense and through the fourth string quarterback. Guys, 3 weeks ago, this guy was running the scout team. He wasn't even he was barely dressed out, for the games. And then we lost, our Devin Leary at the beginning in about 4 or 5 games ago. And golly, what could have been, you always say that about college sports, but what could have been. And because he was a great quarterback, and we really, I think would have been, we would have stuck around the top 15 all year if he just stayed healthy. But anyway, then we went to our next quarterback, who was a kid that transferred in from College of Charleston, or Charleston Southern, excuse me. He filled in okay for us and won a game for us. And then we went to a true freshman, and he played pretty well for us in the game, and then he got hurt. So then we literally pulled this guy off the scout team, and man, give him credit. I mean, he showed up. He played a great game as in that scenario. And but Dave Dorn should get a lot of credit. I just hate the way, if you watch the game, it ended on the kid for Chapel Hill missing a field goal, in double overtime. That's one of the hardest things in sports for me to watch as a kid that misses a chippy field goal that cost the team the game. I mean, it's part of the sport, but man, even though I hate Chapel Hill, being an NC State guy, I felt sorry for that kicker. I mean, you really do. That's going to stick with him forever, But a fantastic college football game, great win for the Wolfpack, and it's just it really was. It shows a lot of heart about that team coming in there with a fourth string quarterback and able to win like that. So
yeah. All right, look, all the folks in the engineering building on Georgia Tech's campus, man, pocket protector sales with Willie Fritz's picture on them are at an all-time high. Brown hush puppies and brown suits, they're the rage up at Georgia Tech. Are they going to hire Willie Fritz? I love that guy. I think he's a great coach.
You think that's going to be the coach, huh?
And that's what Jimmy says.
No, I didn't say that.
Listen, I coming into work. If I'm coming into work today and yesterday, that's all it's all over sports talk radio here in Atlanta, as you can imagine. Everybody's just talking about, the coaching at Georgia Tech or whatever. And I mean, how can you not give that job to Brent Key? I don't know. I mean, the guy lives and breathes Georgia Tech. He was an offensive lineman there. He coached at Alabama for a couple of years under the Saban. He's got that pedigree going for him. He's turned that program. I mean, guys, seriously, if you look at their schedule, they're one win away from being a bowl game.
Yeah.
Right. And they got beat they got shut out by Ole Miss earlier this year. I mean, got destroyed. It was like a high school team playing a college team. It was terrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're one win away now from being a bowl game. And, if you look back at some of these games, I think it was it the Thursday night game at Virginia Tech? It was a horrible game or whatever it was.
God.
It was terrible. They could have very easily won that game, and they'd be going to a bowl game. And if that's the case, how do you not give that job to Brett Key? Because he has turned that. I mean, he's got that team focused after what's happened to them with firing their coach. They've been playing tough. Now, granted, I mean, we all knew that Georgia was probably going to beat them, take them to the woodshed, which they did. But hey, Georgia Tech played. They came in, they scored on the first drive. They got the ball, went down the field 70-some yards and put it in the end zone on Georgia. First time Georgia's been scored on, I think, in the first quarter all season. I mean, I don't know, like to start all over with Fritz. I don't know. I mean, his track record at Tulane in the last couple of years has been good, but up until then, I think he's got a losing record there, right? It's like 41-46 or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, but anybody would have a losing record at Tulane with the situation that he inherited, but that's
true, Jimmy. That's a good point.
And he won at Georgia Southern. at a time when Georgia Southern was really struggling, and he was successful enough, to where he got the opportunity at Tulane. But Willie Fritz is one of the best coaches in college football that nobody's ever heard of. But I really have Chadwell down. He's kind of my number one guy because he's young. He runs that spread option offense, and I think that's the type of offense. Say what you want to about Paul Johnson, but there's a lot of Georgia Tech fans that would be waxing poetic for a return of those days because they had some really good seasons. But Chadwell's one of these guys. Now his quarterback's out for the year, McCall, but man, he has been sensational at Coastal Carolina, and I'm really surprised he hasn't already landed a Power 5 job. And I think that spread attack with a good dual threat quarterback would really win big at Georgia Tech, because I think the ACC right now is a conference where you get the right guy in, you can make some significant headway in a hurry.
Yeah,
I agree with you. And he's what I think with the buzz around here is that everybody around here at Georgia Tech wants them to get for lack of a better word, like a sexy hire, like somebody that's young, going to come in and really kind of shake it up a little bit, and I think that's why everybody's, I agree with you. He would be a great choice. I would pick him and Key over, Fritz myself, but that's just my opinion. I don't know much about them, and I've never met these guys in person, but just from what I've heard and what I've seen, and Georgia Tech is like you said, is in a position where they just get the right guy in there. Whew, that's a lot of pressure on that AD, right? But bring that right guy in there. This town is hungry for college for them to be good again. I mean, they just get no love here in Atlanta, because right up the street in Athens, the Bulldogs get all the love, and it's just it's got to be hard for Georgia Tech fans.
Well, I mean, Auburn and Alabama draw better in Atlanta than Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
You're playing Georgia, Auburn, or Alabama in Atlanta. It's a home game. Auburn has so many alumni, and Alabama in Atlanta. You're right. I got to ask you, too. You talk about a quarterback. Jimmy's right. You get the right guy. Look at Jordan Travis at Florida State. I watched Mike Norvell take over after Justin Fuente had gotten Memphis going, went to Virginia Tech. 4 years there. The fourth year, Mike Norvell had Memphis at 12-2 in the Cotton Bowl against Penn State. The guy is in his third year. They're 9-3 regular season. They win their bowl game. They're 10-3. We talked about that with Johnny Ballpark Franks early in the season. They're getting that machine going again. And Clemson lost on the road at Notre Dame, lost at home for the first time in 40 games back to 2016, 31-30 to their in-state rival South Carolina. I think Florida State's on the verge of taking over in the ACC.
You know what? It's hard to argue that point. I mean, it really is. I agree with you. They've got a lot of good players down there, and they're playing good football, and you got to give them credit, because, I mean, that's been a roller coaster ride for Florida State fans for the last decade or so, being on top there with the Bowden years and dropping all off, and then the Jimbo years and all that stuff, and just kind of can't even find and get their footing, and now they've got some good footing. And I agree with you. And Clemson, Clemson, South Carolina.
Hold those thoughts, Tommy. The old stopwatch just caught us. We're going to take a break. I want to come back. I want your thoughts. We're going to go right back, talk about Clemson here on Sidelines on the Tuesday Blitz.
Hey everyone, my name is David Wisdom.
And I'm Shelby McNeil, and we're attorneys with Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short, your local Auburn law firm. Established in 1959 right in the heart of Auburn, Haggard, Cleveland, Pierce, Thompson & Short has grown in response to our clients' legal needs. We're a full-service law firm focusing on the legal issues our clients face.
We take pride in providing our clients with exceptional legal services, ongoing communication, and skilled representation. If you have any questions about our services, please give us a call or visit our website today.
All right, Tommy Kane, Jimmy Hodge, Rob Browne, Tuesday College Football Basketball Blitz. Tommy, you were on a roll talking about Clemson before the break. Let's go.
You were talking about Florida State maybe taking over the top dog spot in the ACC. I mean, Clemson has had okay, let's face it. I mean, they still have had a good year. I mean, that people keep saying, Clemson's down to whatever. I mean, look, they've lost 2 games all year. Most all college teams in the country would take a 2-loss season. I mean, especially with the 2 losses. And South Carolina, I think, is just kind of, I mean, they've peaked at the right time. Golly, the last couple of games, they've just been, Spencer Rattler's playing with so much confidence back there, quarterback. And the coach has just basically said, hey, man, we're going to live and lose or win with you. Just sling it. Let's go. And South Carolina has just found their groove right now. And you got to give them credit. But that Clemson game was, we've said this all year on the show. We've talked about it a little bit too. Is DJ is a good quarterback. He's solid, but he's not very consistent, and he's not the level of quarterback that Clemson's had over the years. When you talk about the other quarterbacks that have been there all the way, I mean, keep going all the way back to the Hodge boys years or whatever. They just had these great quarterbacks that kept you in the game all the time, no matter what. And DJ I just don't think he's that kind of quarterback for them. He's a good quarterback, don't get me wrong, but he's just not that kind that you go out there knowing you're down by a touchdown or 2 that he's going to get you in the end zone. And Clemson still had a great year, but who's going to be the top dog in the ACC in the coming years? Who knows? But Florida State's on the right track. I mean, that's like you made a great point, Rob. They've got a lot of pieces in the right place.
Well, NC State's another one. Dave Doran's been there a long time.
Yeah.
They're on that fringe, and it's like maybe an elite coordinator or an elite couple of recruiters on the staff, because you go to Raleigh and you see that campus and the engineering program and the research triangle. We know about, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill.
Right.
Listen, man, I mean, I'm not trying to tell people something that they don't probably know, because most of our listeners are educated, intelligent people, including Mildred. But I just look at Florida State and then you look at Miami. The difference is Florida State, Tallahassee, that's a small town compared to Miami. There's so many distractions down there in Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County. It's insane. We'll see what Mario Cristobal can do down there. But another program I got to ask you about in the ACC that I don't think gets a lot of attention is Pitt. Last year they went 11 games, and Kenny Pickett's a number 1, first round draft pick, right. Hometown Pittsburgh Steelers, who've had only 4 coaches in their history. I mean, and that's a program, Mike Nordizzi, whatever, just Pat Nordizzi, hell of a coach.
Yeah, hell of a coach. And they've got a hell of a backfield down there too. There are a couple good, amazing running backs. I mean, when healthy, probably one of the best running backs in the country. And Israel, I always mess up his last name, Abinkada or something, I believe is his name or whatever. But
sounds good enough for government work.
Yeah, that's right. That'll fly. But solid. I mean, they play good football up there. And if you look at their win-loss record, they lost to Tennessee early on in the season, but played them tough. I think it was a 34-27 game. I mean, so it was a tough game. They played Tennessee tough, and obviously at that point in time, Tennessee was early on. People didn't really know how good they'd be all year, but they ended up being a great team. The one bad loss on their schedule for the year was the Georgia Tech loss. They lost early in this year, but then they went on a tear, and they won the last 4 games of the season. Pitt's a good team. Pitt's a good, and you get a lot of those blue collar players up in that area. They come from the towns up and around Pittsburgh, and I've been to a couple of games up there before for doing road trip, and it's a great town. It's a fun place to go watch a college football game for sure, and I like to see them doing well. Always do.
Yeah. Towns like Aliquippa and the Monongahela Valley up there, the 3 rivers. I mean, it's just blue collar, a lot of the coal miners, steel industry. Now Pittsburgh's a big medical research town. Sort of when a lot of the steel industry left, they reinvented themselves as a medical center, just like Birmingham. But Birmingham still has a ton of steel, but not as much as they once did. Jimmy, jump back in with Tommy Kane, formerly of the ACC road trip, and hopefully soon he's going to be the king of the ACC in some way. We're going to find a way to make it happen. But Tommy, I love that take on Pitt, and also the more I think about it with Brett Key. Jimmy, what do you think?
I just think they have to go with an experienced head coach, or at least one that's had proven success. And it's just tough to do if you have a long history like Georgia Tech does. And getting back to Georgia Tech, I can't help but think that the new AD came from Alabama, and I have to wonder if Bill O'Brien wouldn't be a really strong candidate to make a return to Georgia Tech. He was on O'Leary's staff when they had a great run there. And that 2 years he spent at Penn State, along with what Bill Snyder did at Kansas State, I think that might have been the most miraculous coaching job I've ever seen at the Power 5 level, because Penn State, you talk about at the abyss. The NCAA fined the school $50 million. They allowed every player that wanted to transfer. At that time, it was unheard of to go to any school they wanted without having to sit out. And what he did in those 2 years allowed, and it set the foundation for James Franklin to be able to win there immediately. And without those 2 years he spent there, Penn State wouldn't even remotely be close to where they are right now. And I think that might be a possibility. And I could see maybe O'Brien possibly at Cincinnati. So I think it's going to be interesting to see where he goes, because he won't be back at Alabama next year.
Yeah.
Interesting. And I think this is the first time in about 25 years Bill O'Brien's called an entire offensive game. And I mean, by Alabama standards, they're not real happy. I mean, they're 10-2. By the way, a footnote to history, that's 15 straight years of 10+ wins. I don't think that's ever been done before in the history of college football. Trivia question for Jimmy or Tommy Kane. I want y'all to answer this question. Erskine Russell from, I think he went to McGill, Tulane, or Murphy High School in Mobile, played at Auburn, coached at Georgia, went to Georgia Southern, won multiple national championships when he revived the football program in 1981. Who was the other coach? He was the last two-way player in Auburn history at Georgia Southern. He won national championship. Anybody know his name? Anyone? Class? Anyone?
Bueller.
Come on, Tommy. On my cell phone, it first came to me as it's Kane in all caps. Kane Thomas. Every time I try to get Siri call Tommy Kane, she goes, I don't have. I go, oh, that's call Kane Thomas. Or yeah. But
you got me, Rob. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know.
Jimmy, don't be looking. Jimmy's not.
Jimmy's looking up on Google right now. He's asking Google.
No,
I know they've won. I know they've won about 3 national championships after Irk retired, and they've had a succession of coaches, but they had a couple of guys that did win a couple, but I just can't. Now, Irk Russell's son, was he not the head coach there for a couple of years, Rusty, or
no, sir.
No.
Well, no, he may have been, but I'm saying the guy that followed him.
But he didn't win a national championship.
Yeah. The one that followed Irk Russell.
I think he won a national championship, but I don't know who it was, though. I can't remember his name.
The one that followed Erskine Russell, Irk. He, it was Tim Stowers, the last two-way player. From Montgomery. And he went to Jeff Davis or Lee, Robert E. Lee or Jeff Davis High School. And it's just a cool story what they did over there. Tommy, you think about, like, now we're talking football, but man, you remember Joe Dean, don't you? And Tom Hammond and John Ferguson, former golden voice of the LSU Tigers, used to call the basketball games. Did you ever watch? Remember Joe Dean? Yeah. I'm gonna get you fired up talking about basketball. He go, oh, man, we're here in Lexington, Kentucky at Rupp Arena, and now here comes the Kentucky Wildcats and Vanderbilt. Phil Guggen comes up, posts at the baseline, a little string music from downtown Lexington, KY. Remember?
That's it. I love it.
Tommy, you know who I used to love to watch? And Jimmy was the biggest fan. Remember Jim Thacker?
Oh, Jim Thacker, Billy Packer.
And Billy Packer, of course.
No, it's Jim Thacker and Billy Packer. Hey, we had our former Episcopal priest at Calvary Episcopal Church in Memphis, 2nd and Adams, Doug Bailey, went to college at Wake Forest, was a classmate with Billy Packer. And I'm going to tell you what, remember Al McGuire, Billy Packer? Tommy, let's talk a little college basketball, ACC style. Last year, people tried to get off the reservation and say other conferences had passed you by. When the Elite Eight, all the dust had settled, Who had 3 teams in the Elite Eight? Say it. Say it! That's right. Sam Kennison from Back to School. I like the way you think. I'll be watching you. Tommy, let's talk some college basketball, ACC.
Man, I'll tell you what, the biggest news for me coming out was the announcement yesterday, the ACC SEC Challenge. You guys see that? Starting in 2023, 2024, instead of the ACC Big Ten, the ACC SEC Challenge for women and men, which is awesome.
I love it.
It's fantastic. It's great. It's I mean, all teams will participate. And, because when I was in school at NC State, and on the team, we were playing in the ACC Big East Challenge, and the Big East was still like, and all that stuff. And we would go and do all that. And in fact, I think for probably up until VHSs stopped playing, but when we went to playing that game, I'll never forget. They give every player like a gift for coming to the thing or whatever. And they gave us a VCR player that had on the top of it a little plaque on it said ACC Big East Challenge. And I kept that thing forever until I think even once it stopped working, I just kept it because I thought it was cool. And then I finally got rid of it. But yeah. And then, they did the Big Ten Challenge, which has been great. But now it's the ACC SEC, which I think is fantastic. I mean, there's going to be some great matchups. It's going to give a lot of interest for college basketball around, this early on in the season, which would be great. But yeah, college basketball is in full swing. I mean, hey, Houston, the Cougars, not the Phi Slamma Jamma, not those guys, not the Clyde Drexler and Keem Olajuwon and Benny Anders, but Houston is #1 team in the country. And it's been a long time since you've said that, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. Tommy, look, man, we run out of time in this segment, but we got to get you back on next week. Let's do this. Once basketball gets cranking up, we're going to do even more with you. We love having you on, love your insight. And you've got a great production company, a lot going on. Let people know how they can contact with you and follow you, because you are definitely worth following, the tip of the spear of the ACC.
Well, I appreciate that, Rob. I do. And Jimmy, it's good to talk with you guys as always. But yeah, got my own production company, Pack 30 Productions, PACK 30 Productions. Do a lot of video production work out of the Southeast here in Atlanta, and then do talent work as well. You can follow me on Tommy Kane-Talent. Look it up on the website. There's a website there for you. And but I appreciate it, guys. It's always fun talking sports with you guys. You get my blood fired up every time I'm on the show. I'm like, and hey, let's go USA today, right, baby? World Cup. Let's go.
Yes.
Yeah, let's do it.
Hey, I'm going to have to get Chef Roger and Nigel, 2 of my British mates. Nigel's our webmaster. They're Arsenal and Man United fans, and they follow soccer like we follow college football and basketball. So let's do a little round table with that. So, I mean, I'm all for it. But, Tommy, have a great week. And, again, thank you so much for taking time to join us. We really appreciate it.
All right, guys. My pleasure. Y'all take care.
You too. All right, let's switch down now to Athens, Georgia, the classic city. Back-to-back 12-0 regular seasons. Jordan Hill, you're old enough to remember Larry Munson. You know darn well Larry would find something to worry about getting ready to play LSU. I don't know about this team. They're coming in off of a loss to Texas A&M. They're going to be madder than a bunch of wet hens in a hen house. And I don't know. Lauren, what do you got? Well, there we got Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports, Georgia. He covers Georgia like Cotton and Kudzu cover the South. Let's go, Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports. Welcome to Sidelines. I'm on my 5th cup of coffee.
Couldn't tell at all there, Rob. But yeah, I'd say Larry, he'd find something. This LSU team's got nothing to lose. But I mean, credit to what Georgia's been able to do these last few years to have back-to-back undefeated regular seasons. And it's interesting. I wrote this morning. You think about everything that Georgia has accomplished, and you look these last 6 seasons, all the winning they've done. They have not won the SEC in that time. They wind up, they've lost to LSU. They've gotten beat by Alabama twice in the SEC title game. So this is a group, as much as they've won, these guys have never won the SEC. Georgia won it back in 2017. So I think this is a hungry team. And I think that, they are going to be playing an LSU team that is going to be looking to kind of, brush itself off after that Texas A&M loss. But I do think there's real motivation with this Georgia team to go into Atlanta and come out of there with the SEC crown.
Yeah, and we're getting a little static. I don't know what that is on the line. Not now. Here we go. It's good now. Jordan, Tony Barnhart was on the show with us yesterday, and I asked him, I said, who's your vote for SEC Coach of the Year? And he goes, I'm going to throw one at you that's kind of a surprise. I'm going to make a case for Kirby Smart because of what he lost from last year, what he had coming back to manage that, to do what he's doing, and they're 12-0. And, of course, my man, they need to put him up on the Mount Rushmore of children's bedtime stories about never quit, never give up. If you can conceive it, you can believe it, you can achieve it. Stetson Bennett IV, the pride of Blackshear, Georgia. But I think Tony Barnhart, it's hard to argue with a man who's forgotten more than most of the free world knows about college football. But I think that's a good choice. That's hard to manage that much talent and then to replace 15 draft choices and be back-to-back undefeated 2 years in a row. It's almost it hardly ever happens.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a compelling case, but I think ultimately it's going to be just like how many times, could Nick Saban have won it versus how many times he did win it. I think more than likely it's going to be Josh Heupel would be my guess, but Kirby deserves a lot of credit for the job they've done this year.
Yeah. Jordan, you want to try to reboot and come back in? We're getting a really
Sure.
Okay, yeah, because I love hearing what you have to say. Try to reboot and come back on, and Jimmy and I will keep it going here for a minute, but got plenty of time for you. So we're going to take a break in about a minute. Get Jordan Hill back on. Jimmy, talking about that Georgia team worrying about LSU. Get us worried. We got 45 seconds.
Well, they just have to be really focused on this game, but I think they will because they know if they win, there's a great chance that they're going to be able to play their semifinal game in Atlanta. But I tell you, though, with this committee, you never know what they're going to do because, with this resounding Michigan win at Ohio State, they might move Michigan to the number one spot. I mean, we know everybody's in love with, the Big Ten teams, and that's a huge win, and it could happen.
Jimmy, hold that thought. We're getting those static. Again, let's try this. Try to reboot during the break if you can, and come right back. We'll be back with more on Sidelines. Last segment coming up.
Now more than ever, it is so important to shop local and to buy American. For 60 years, Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company has been on the historic Collierville Square, and we strive to sell made in the USA products when available. With over 7,000 pairs of Western boots and work boots in stock for men and women, come and see our huge selection of clothing, jeans, and accessories from top brands made in the USA. Please support local business and come shop with us at Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company. God bless the USA.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you on Sidelines with the final segment. Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports, covering Georgia, and got some must have a Blue Jay on the line, as Andy Baird used to always say. Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports, Georgia. Jordan, again, you always want to have something to coach the guys on. Worry is a waste of time. It says so in the good book. We know that, but still, LSU, I see them still projected as 5 or 6 in the playoff rankings tonight. What is it about LSU that you, as someone who knows Georgia really well, are concerned about because you hadn't played them this year?
I think the biggest thing to me going into this game is just going to be how they rush the passer. I mean, you look at Harold Perkins and the way he's played, I think it's a situation where he's going to have a chance to make plays. And him and B.J. Ojulari, I think they're guys that come into this game really hungry. And I think that, to me, LSU's only chance is to get after Stetson Bennett and for Georgia to continue when it comes to the red zone. I think if that is an issue, if Georgia has to settle for field goals rather than touchdowns, that could wind up being the difference for Georgia if LSU is able to keep this thing close.
Yeah. Well, Brian Kelly talked about Darnell Washington. He goes, he's a really large human, big guy, 6'7", 6'8", out of Las Vegas. He is outstanding tight end. Brock Bowers, leading receiver on the team. There's so many weapons that Georgia has. If you're Brian Kelly, how are you going to try to make Georgia uncomfortable in this game? Because it's going to be basically a home game. Georgia's known for 4 or 5 weeks since they beat Tennessee, that they would be in Atlanta. So they're going to have 80% of the tickets.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the fact it's in Atlanta, this might as well be a home game. I mean, I think if you're LSU, you got to be aggressive. I think you basically have to play out here like you have nothing to lose, which truly, I think that that's the case. I think that, I don't think LSU is going to be that high in the rankings because you've got teams like Ohio State and Alabama. I don't think Alabama's out of this yet, just the way things have shaken out. But I think LSU should come in this game, play like they got nothing to lose because, I think that they've accomplished a lot, even considering that Texas A&M lost last week. And I think they need to come into this game and just kind of play loose if they're going to hang with, what I think is a really good Georgia team and a Georgia team that's going to give them all they can handle.
Yeah, and Stetson Bennett, as far as quarterbacks go and players in Georgia history, he's going to have to go down as one of the all-time greats. How can he not be on that list? You agree or disagree?
Oh, totally agree. I don't, the argument would probably be Aaron Murray, and then I guess Buck Bellew because he was the quarterback of that 80 team. But he's got an argument for the greatest Georgia quarterback of all time. I mean, you can throw other guys like Fran Tarkenton in there as well. But, I mean, for what he's accomplished, and even if they come up short of a national title this year, I mean, you got to give him a ton of credit, especially, too, we've talked about it a lot. This guy was a walk-on. Kirby talked about this fall. We basically did everything we could not to give him the job. He wasn't a 4-star or 5-star that you come in and maybe give a little leeway. We know what this guy can do. I mean, he just showed them over and over again until they said, look, he's our best option. And clearly that's proven to be the case.
Yeah. Jimmy Hodge, jump in here with Jordan Hill.
Well, what I wanted to ask you about, Jordan, is the motivation that Georgia's going to have against LSU on Saturday, because you've got to think that if they not only win, but win convincingly, that means they're going to get to play their semifinal game at the Georgia Dome, which would be a big advantage. But at the same time, with the committee, you never know, because we know the national media is infatuated with the Big Ten. And with the scope of that Michigan victory at Ohio State, I mean, it's a foregone conclusion they're going to be number 2, but I wouldn't put it past anybody to put them at number 1, because again, people just get carried away with the Big Ten. I mean, I don't know what it is. And, last year when they beat Ohio State and just destroyed, I think, Iowa in the Big Ten championship game, everybody thought, oh, what a great matchup this is going to be against Georgia. And they just crushed them like a bug, And I think that the matchup might be a little bit better, but I do think if, Michigan and Georgia played again, the size advantage that Georgia has up front on both sides of the ball would be difficult to overcome. But I wanted to ask you, though, and Tony told us yesterday, what's going to be really key tonight when they announce the top 4 is if Alabama's at number 5, that means that if USC loses for sure against a Utah team that beat them late on a 2-point conversion in the regular season, or maybe TCU. Now, I think the scope of that Ohio State loss might mean that TCU's in no matter what if they don't win Saturday night, because I think they have 5-6 wins against ranked teams, which is more than everybody else. But I just don't see how Ohio State can lose a game by 3 touchdowns the week before, the selection, and then Tennessee loses a game by 4 touchdowns 2 weeks before to a team who themselves the week before lost by 5 touchdowns to Florida. So how do you see these rankings coming out tonight, and what are your thoughts overall on what I said?
Yeah, I mean, I think my gut tells me Georgia will still be 1, but like you said, Jimmy, I wouldn't be shocked if Michigan jumps Georgia, but I think it's going to be Georgia. I think it'll be Michigan. I think that TCU and USC probably 3 and 4. And I think it's going to be Alabama 5. That's my big question is it Alabama or is it Ohio State at 5? And I think the fact that, while Ohio State only has a 1 loss compared to 2 to Alabama, both Alabama's losses came on the very last play of those 2 games. I think that Alabama's kind of going to get the benefit of the doubt between those teams. And yeah, I mean, I do think Georgia if it plays well, it can kind of shore up that number 1 seed on Saturday. I think there's a belief with some that maybe Georgia doesn't have much to play for, but I do think that matters. And I can guarantee you that Kirby and those guys, they would much rather just go down the road to Atlanta rather than having to go, I think, the other semifinals in Arizona. So, I mean, that would make travel and all that a whole lot more difficult compared to playing in Atlanta.
Well, you think about Georgia and their 2 big marquee matchups this year. Game 1, 49-3 in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Stadium against Oregon. Oregon reeled off a bunch of wins after that. Now they've lost 2 of their last 3. And then they play at home November 5th against the number 1 ranked team, Tennessee. Hold them without a touchdown the first 55 minutes. Now, Ohio State, strength of schedule is like 66. Jimmy pointed that out yesterday, the counselor. All right, they play at home. Everybody's watching the 12 noon Eastern game against Michigan. Ohio State, they get 45-23. I mean, Michigan physically manhandled Ohio State. Now, Ryan Day, he's 45-5 in 4 seasons at Ohio State. Do the math. That's a 90% winning percentage. But look at those 5 losses. And he's an outstanding coach. And I'm not attacking Jimmy, but how the committee, if they bump Michigan up to number 1, again, we know that 70% of the TV sets are in the geographical footprint that is the Big Ten. When you factor in UCLA and Southern Cal, we don't know if UCLA is coming or not. Depends on what they do. But Georgia, especially, if the best thing that could happen is move Georgia and make them even angrier and with more to prove Saturday against LSU. I mean, I'm not saying I want them to beat LSU. I mean, I want to see a great game, but you see where I'm going with that, Jordan? Do you agree?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, and that's the thing, too, that, whatever comes out tonight, it could all be changed by Sunday when the committee meet. I mean, a lot of it's television. So I think if, Michigan jumps 1, I don't think, Georgia fans should go, out in the streets, start screaming why, I mean, it could just, it could change right back. And, I think that, again, I think right now, Georgia, the way the regular season ended, I'd say they were the biggest fans of South Carolina because of what they did, just because that bolstered what was another blowout win for Georgia earlier in this year. I mean, they beat Tennessee. They put out 2 playoff teams.
Yeah.
I think more than likely, I think Georgia's still number 1, but I definitely wouldn't, I wouldn't faint in my seat if all of a sudden Michigan's number 1 tonight.
Well, I can tell you somebody who right now from high above is worrying relentlessly, not even sleeping, smoking cigarettes down to his fingertips. My God, this committee's going to get together. They could move us from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. We could move out of the top 5. We've got to play a great game. Lauren, what do you got? Jimmy, you see where I'm going? You think Larry's worrying?
Larry's worrying about everything. I mean, he'll think of something. But my question here, though, is, well, first of all, there's not going to be any question if TCU and USC win. I mean, the top 4 are set. And I think absolutely Georgia's number 1 if they just beat LSU, period, 2 consecutive 12-win regular seasons. But if USC or TCU lose and Alabama's at number 5 tonight and they move into that number 4 spot, would the committee match Alabama and Georgia in the semifinals? Or do they want to avoid that or until the championship game? Or how do you see that? Would that be part of their thought process at all?
I really think that they would just match them up in the semis, mainly because they haven't played this year. It's a little bit different, last year with the fact they played in the SEC title game. And the fact that game would be in Atlanta, I mean, they'd make a whole lot of money on tickets and attention to have that as a semifinal. So, yeah, I don't think necessarily that they would hesitate to put that matchup, mainly because they haven't played this year. Had they played in the SEC championship like last year, it might have been kind of a different calculation as far as what they wanted the semis to look like.
Jordan, this Georgia team, like LSU, loaded with talent. But I can't remember a year. Is Georgia going to have a 1,000-yard rusher this year?
I don't think so. Kenny McIntosh has been leading the way, but they've done a great job of really spreading the wealth.
Yeah.
Him, Dejon Edwards, and Kendall Milton as well, who's come back from injury.
And so looking at it, I know we just got a few minutes left. This Georgia team, Ladd, McConkey, McIntosh, it's really starts with the great red wall. What do you rate this Georgia offensive line compared to what LSU is going to come at you with on their front seven on defense?
I mean, I think Georgia's offensive line is excellent. I don't know if the Joe Moore Award, if they've announced their finalists. I've seen a few awards being announced this morning, but Georgia's got an argument, and I think that's a lot of credit to Stacey Searles, who was not a very popular hire for a lot of Georgia fans. He had been here before in the mid-late 2000s, and he's done a great job. They had to replace 2 starters from last year's line, and they've stepped up, and they've continued to rotate guys. They got about 7 guys they rotate between the 5 spots. I think this offensive line is really gifted, and I think they will have the upper hand. I do think that that's a big part, and something I'm going to write about today is Georgia's run game. It really seems like in the last 2 or 3 games, they've hit that higher gear, and couldn't happen at a better time as far as Georgia trying to finish this thing off.
Yeah, Jordan, I know you said you've got to get to another engagement. Let people know we love having you on here, but in the interest of and respect for your time, we got to let you get off. So tell people how they can follow you, and look forward to having you on next week. And we really appreciate your time always.
Absolutely, guys. DAWGS247.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Jordan Davis Hill or at DAWGS247. So all kinds of content, SEC Championship Week. It's kind of crazy to think it's already here, but looking forward to it, and I think it'll be a pretty entertaining game on Saturday.
Oh, we will be watching every single minute of it, man. Have a great week and great time at the game.
All right, appreciate you guys.
You bet. Always. Same here. Jimmy, wow, this is going to be a fun game. But again, I was watching one of the projections last night on TV. Had LSU, they expect LSU to be number 5. That's moving them up. I can't remember who the guy was on SEC Network saying that. And I don't know if you saw that or not, but LSU's 9-3. They got that 1-point loss in game 1 in the Superdome to Florida State. We remember that. They got destroyed at home by Tennessee in the 11 a.m. game. And then they went on the road and got beat soundly by A&M. Good news, bad news. A&M people, they're going to probably, I'm sure, keep Jimbo. And the beat goes on, and every now and then they'll get it all together. But you think LSU has a chance if let's say they beat Georgia 38-10, some crazy score. You think they have a shot then as a 10-3 team, SEC champion, a better than 50% shot?
I think there are a lot of people hoping that scenario doesn't take place.
Yeah.
But I don't see it, because Daniels, you could tell at the end of that A&M game, he was injured. I mean, that ankle did not look to be in good shape. I doubt that he's going to be at 100%. And for them to even have a shot to beat Georgia at Mercedes-Benz, they're going to have him at 100%, playing at a very high level. And also, if I'm the Georgia coaching staff, I'm looking at that tape of the A&M game, because Harold Perkins was not really a factor, and I'm going to be watching exactly what type of schemes that the A&M offensive line used, because it was very effective. I don't think that scenario is going to come into play, but golly, if it were a close game and somehow LSU were able to win, I don't know, a 3-loss SEC champion, I think that's a tough sell. I think Georgia's in no matter what, unless they did get blown out like, Ohio State did and like Tennessee did just a couple of weeks ago, because the closer you get to that selection show, you don't want any just resounding losses, that's for sure. So
no,
we'll just have to wait and see. But tonight, I do think will tell us a lot. Again, to sum it up, if TCU and USC win Saturday, it won't matter. But if one of them does lose and Alabama is at number 5, that tells you Alabama's going to be in.
Yeah. All right, let's do this. Been a great show today. Got a great one on store for tomorrow. I've got a great lineup. 6 days a week, Sidelines, Monday through Saturday, www.sidelines. Nigel puts out all of our web stuff. If you miss it there, go to 680thefan.com, podcast part, www.sidelines.live. All the shows are up within an hour and 15 minutes after the broadcast. Check them out on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, you name it. We're there. We appreciate so much all of our listeners and viewers. Go out and help somebody with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Don't give to get, give to give, and walk away. You'll get all the credit in the world. You'll get all the success in the world as long as you don't mind who gets the credit. You don't have to remind people that you actually did your job. Just do it and go on. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. And folks, we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. 95% of life is showing up with a positive attitude, a smile, a couple extra boxes of shells, full tank of gas. Like I said, we're out of here. We'll see you tomorrow.